A new book claims to explain the Trump administration's populist methods and shares firsthand accounts of how the president engages with policy and politics.
He's chief economist for the Trump administration's Council of Economic Advisors, and he's the author of a new book, You're Hired: Untold Successes and Failures of a Populist President. Author Casey Mulligan joins us now to share more about his new book coming out September 3rd. Great to have you, sir.
Can't believe I'm on my favorite show right now.
Oh, well, we're so
look
flattered.
At that. Good to see you, Professor.
Not going to take it easy on you, though.
Yeah.
So lay out what you wanted people to know about this presidency and maybe aspects of it that haven't been well covered by the media.
Yeah, once I was there, I realized, I wish everyone could meet the president, see the good and the bad and the ugly. And that wasn't really coming out. So when I was finished working there, I was putting my notes together. I saw this obvious populist theme. And so the book is kind of organized around that theme, but fundamentally, it's my observations while I was there of the president and the people working with him and how he engaged, as Sagar said, with the policy and the politics.
Yeah, and so, Casey, I mean, I've been quite frustrated, I'm sure, if you watch the show, kind of with, the lack of populist successes within the administration. You worked in that administration, so I guess I have to hold you personally culpable a little bit for it. Why did we not see, some of the infrastructure plans, some of the departure from Republican orthodoxy? And we saw instead a real commitment to kind of a old Reaganite ideology within the administration, rather than the promises that Trump ran on in 2016.
Well, I kind of think of it like a Ted Williams. Red Sox fans, most of the times when Ted Williams went to bat, Red Sox fans were disappointed. But he was still a big advance on what went before, and people ever since have looked back. And I think our president's an entrepreneur. He hasn't solved all the problems. How do you get the ruling class to step aside and give the people what they want? He's able to do that in a number of areas, but he failed in other areas. That's the subtitle of my book.
Right.
And I hope that we can learn from the failures and the successes.
Well, so I just want to press you on specifics. What are the failures in your view?
There are failures around the opioid epidemic, both successes and failures. He brought attention to that. Mm-hmm. He did some good things. Pence did as well. But also there's important facts that we can't solve this problem without having these facts, and they're actively buried by both parties, and that continues in this administration. There are special interest favors that have been pulled out, and to the help of regular people, but there are special interest favors that are there as rich as ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's talk specifically because, in some ways, most of the presidency is almost erased by what's happening in the pandemic right now. So how do you assess his economic response to the pandemic? We saw these executive orders over the weekend. Most people are saying they probably aren't going to ultimately do that much. We're still not getting direct stimulus payments. We're still not getting state and local aid, so you could face something up to 5 million layoffs because of that. There's a lot of questions over whether states will be able to implement this unemployment benefit and whether they'll be able to pony up their piece of the pie. And more broadly speaking, something that you may have heard Sagar and I talk about is that, look, Republicans have largely fallen in line with this president. So if he wanted unemployment benefits and he came out from the beginning and said, look, here's my program, we're doing direct stimulus payments, we're doing unemployment benefits, they would ultimately fall in line. But he didn't do that. He kind of sat back, let the Republican caucus, flounder and fall into a mess, came in at the last minute, did with executive orders, I guess, what he could. But it ends up not being that much. So if he has these populist instincts, where were they right now in this moment of need?
I'm not working there right now, and negotiating with Congress was never my specialty. I was feeding the president information about the economy and his policies. I think these executive orders, which I've read, are not very good. I assume that their intention is to get the negotiations going again and not to be actually used.
And so, Professor, I know you were like you said, you weren't necessarily negotiating with Congress, but you still had an inside view into the Oval and so much more. I don't know your personal inclinations there, but obviously there was a battle between people who had more populist inclinations and people who didn't, and the people who didn't won. Kind of in my view, in the way that the Trump presidency has been handled. Given the time that you were there, could you lay that dynamic out a little bit? Why do you think that happened?
Yeah, there are plenty of examples. There was always that battle, and the president the president was like the chief populist. The president kept going back to promises he made in the campaign, and why aren't we doing that? And an example that I was especially involved with is the case in the Texas versus Azar. You're familiar with that case that it goes to the fundamental legal foundations of the Affordable Care Act. All the experts in the administration, everyone in the administration, was of the view the federal government should not support that case. They should let the ACA continue. And the president he was the only one saying, but hey, I promised the people to get rid of Obamacare. And by the way, I was one of those experts who was also saying, don't support that case. But he unilaterally said, no, I promised that to my voters, and I don't think it's a good idea to have Obamacare, which is a bad program, be the benchmark. We should give them a better benchmark to compare Medicare for all or whatever Biden's plan might be. That was his approach, and he kept going back to, and he used rather colorful language I won't use on your show, kept saying, I promised the voters that, and I heard that so many times. And yeah, none of us, except for Pence, none of the rest of us are elected. I probably couldn't get 4 votes in a faculty meeting.
But on that point, he also promised that he would provide health care to everyone, that everyone would have health care. And it was, I don't think he just promised, let's get rid of Obamacare. People wouldn't have accepted that. They wanted to see it replaced with something better, and they still do, by the way. But he's nowhere to be found in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yep. This is a battle going on in the administration, and when he would tell us about what he promised, is like, we got to get rid of Obamacare, and we need something better. Where secretaries and experts, where's my plan that's better than Obamacare? And so that can be the standard which to compare whatever the Biden plan, the Warren plan, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
it's not easy to get a bureaucracy.
That's certainly the case.
Whoever would be your populist president, they're going to have the problem that the career people running the government are the elite ruling class, who's an outsider, but that they might get eaten alive. And so the media will criticize you if you don't put somebody who has experience in that whatever department, Defense Department, Transportation Department, Health Department. But then once you put in somebody who's got a great resume, they're an insider by definition, and it's a tough problem. And the president has cracked it in a few areas, and he hasn't cracked it in others.
Yeah, certainly something we pay attention to on this show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you joining us, Professor, very much.
Thank you. Congrats on the book.
Yep. Is Senator Ted Cruz really ready to give everybody $1 million a day and 3 soy lattes forever? We will tell you about that magic money when Rising continues. I hate soy, for the record.